Malinowski of New Jersey. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, and Transportation Committees. Good to see you. So Ukraine's president says he does not expect much from this meeting, but that the delegations should try. You held top diplomatic roles in the Clinton and Obama administrations. How much hope do you have in these planned talks?
I don't have a lot of hope that this is going to be resolved by diplomacy in the next 24, 48 hours. Of course, Putin at this point hoped to be marching through Kiev and toppling the Ukrainian government and celebrating some kind of sick victory. And that has not proved as easy as he wanted. So I guess it's a good sign they're willing to start talking. I think they're going to need to suffer significantly more setbacks on the battlefield before anything acceptable to these brave Ukrainian fighters and leaders could even be possible.
Mm-hmm. You say NATO has never been more united in its history. Do you see that, along with sanctions limiting Russia's banking access and a growing commitment of arsenal to Ukraine, eventually leading to Russia retreating?
There's no question in my mind that Russia will suffer a strategic defeat in this war. That said, they may still win some tactical victories. They do still have a significantly larger and more powerful military, and I worry that as they are frustrated on the battlefield, they may use increasingly brutal tactics. So we do need to brace ourselves, as inspiring as it is to see the success of these brave Ukrainian defenders. This may remain ugly for some time. But there's no question that strategically Putin is losing. He's united NATO against him. He's united Ukrainians against him. He has not achieved his military objectives. Heck, he's even united Democrats and Republicans in the United States to do something against him. And that's quite a feat. So, this is, I hope that at some point we get to a point where he is willing to talk about terms for backing down. I just don't think we're there yet.
I mean, you are painting the picture that he's in a desperate situation. And, in desperation, people do desperate things. Does that make you even more concerned about this nuclear deterrence force being put at the ready?
No, we should be calm about that. That is Putin trying to rattle us. That's psychological. Deterrence works. He knows perfectly well that if he were to do anything with nuclear weapons, it would be the end of his country and of him personally. So we need to remain confident and calm, stay the course here. Remember, sanctions move more slowly than tanks. The sanctions that President Biden has announced are incredibly strong, but they will be felt increasingly strongly by the Russians and by the Russian leader over the coming days and weeks. And as that happens, I think we'll be in a much better position to resolve this in a way that is just and fair and in keeping with the bravery of the Ukrainian people.
Slow as it may be, these sanctions or even other limitations that are targeting the Russian government, how much of a difference does it make that even his enablers, too, will be caught up in, the web of sanctions and limitations?
I think it's a tightening noose around his regime. We don't know what's happening in the Kremlin right now. We don't know what the conversations are like, but just reading the tea leaves, seeing the footage of Putin sitting 12, 15, 20 feet away from his closest advisors, this does not look like a government where people are telling him the truth. It does not seem like a good arrangement for making good decisions. And I think that may be one explanation for the really bad, disastrously bad decisions that Putin has made. It's going to be, I think, the point of the sanctions is to harm his economy, to make it harder for the Russian government to continue this course. But it's also going to be a morale boost, I think, for the Ukrainians to see key people around Putin lose their yachts and their planes, to see police tape around their luxury villas in Paris and London, and yes, in New York City and Miami. We've been complicit in this as well. We have to accept that. So watch that space. Watch how the United States and our European allies, in a united, determined way, aggressively scour the world, seizing the properties and the wealth of these guys who have propped up Putin all these years. I cannot wait to see that, and I know the Ukrainians can't either.
Senator Chuck Schumer is pushing a $6.4 billion emergency aid package that would include humanitarian, economic, security assistance to people and to the government of Ukraine. Are you confident that Congress will be able to get this through?
Yes, absolutely. That's a no-brainer. A group of us were in Munich last weekend for the security conference that just preceded the invasion of Ukraine. We came out of that committed to work towards supplemental funding to help Ukraine's fighters, to provide humanitarian aid. I think we need to beef up some of the parts of the U.S. government involved in the sanctions enforcement effort that I just mentioned. In Congress, at least, Democrats and most Republicans are determined to do what we can to help the Ukrainians win this fight.
And now to even more personal stuff. I mean, there have been some heartbreaking images of Ukrainians fleeing their homeland, families being split up. You were born in communist Poland during the height of the Cold War. And when you were 6, and here's a photo of you, you and your mother fled to the United States. I can only imagine your emotions when you see, the kind of fear and panic on the faces of Ukrainians. And in relation to what you personally experienced, what has it been like for you to watch this?
I just feel such an enormous sense of kinship with these wonderful people. I was there 3 weeks ago in Kiev and tried to imagine what it would be like to look up in the air and to see planes dropping bombs trying to kill me. And it was just impossible to imagine. But I grew up with these stories. My family lived through the Second World War, lived through the violence and displacement and the evil of that conflict. And for me, what this is all about is making sure that that evil is not visited on the world again. The dictatorships trying to change borders by force with tanks. That's what led to the Second World War. That's what led to the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. And it has been the mission of the United States in the world ever since to prevent that from happening. That's why it's so important that Putin lose this fight, because the whole world is watching to see whether the free world will stand up for the rules that have kept us safe all these years.
Democratic Congressman Tom Malinowski, pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.